Welcome to Habs Unfiltered, episode 373. I'm your host, Blain, and I'm joined now by my co-hosts, Matt Smith
Good evening.
and Trege Wilson.
Hello.
It is a rare time indeed to get all three of us together, and that's going to be the case all season long as all three of us are supremely busy with our day jobs and our sporting endeavors of lifting things and flexing.
Yeah, Matt's doing really well. Good on
Some
you,
of us
Matt.
are competing for a pro card, right?
No, it's not. No, it's not a pro card. It's just
No?
I'm competing for a chance to compete for a pro card.
Oh, okay. Well, step at a time.
Mm.
One rep at a time.
So if I finish top three, I get qualified for nationals.
Giggity. And then you get to travel. Woo.
Yeah, I don't think I will. Though. I think I'm going to take a year off and then bulk and then come back for the Atlantics and then do nationals after the Atlantic.
Excellent.
I bet you're looking forward to eating some real food.
Why are we even talking about that? Like, I got 3 weeks to my show on the 30th, and then 2 more weeks to my show in Moncton.
So after all this is over, what are you eating first?
Probably a steak.
Okay.
I'll go to the Keg in Moncton, get a nice big
There you
juicy
go.
steak.
There you go.
Baseball steak with French fries, mayonnaise. All right, I'm out.
But until then, no.
Yeah.
All right. So for the episode this week, we got a few things to talk about. The prospect tournament, the Biosteel Camp that was here in Halifax, Hughes' summer, and other odds and ends that'll pop up. So why don't we just start it off with the rookie camp that's starting up on the 13th of September, which is a Wednesday. Matt, you put out the list. You retweeted the list of names
Yep.
that are going to be participating. I'd like to. Why don't you tell us what they are, and then we'll talk about some interesting names in there.
Okay, so the Canadiens rookie camp is going to begin on Wednesday with the players going to Montreal for their medicals. There's going to be 27 players, 15 forwards, 9 defensemen, 3 goaltenders. 17 players are participating, were drafted by the Canadiens, including 3 that were selected by the Canadiens at the 2023 draft. And of the 27 participants, 3 were invited on a tryout. So when I look at some of the names, I kind of look at it in 2 different ways. I look at the guys that should stand out just based on their skill levels, and then I look at the guys that have some pro experience, mainly guys like Sean Farrell. I look at Jan Mysak, who seems to be like the guy's been around forever, but he's at another rookie tournament. But I get another guy with pro experience, Xavier Simoneau, who played for Laval last year, and John Parker Jones, as well as William Trudeau. I'm looking to see, are they going to be guys that can step up and be, say, difference makers at this rookie camp, or are they just going to kind of blend in? Emil Heineman being another one. I know we're going to get in and talk about him later on because I know Trege wrote an article regarding him as one of the players to watch this year. But when I look at this roster, like, I'm looking for some of these guys to take the bull by the horns and just go with it. I want to see someone that's going to really stand out. I know Heineman's talked a big game. He expects to make the Canadiens roster. Messer seems to think that he's going to jump right into the AHL, not have to go back. Owen Beck had a great season last year, and had a great camp. Another guy that could surprise, but I think a lot of eyes are going to be on David Reinbacher. 100%. They're going to be looking at Reinbacher. They're going to be looking at Logan Mailloux, and for once, I'm looking towards seeing some of these goaltenders, because for the longest time, Montreal has been drafted goaltenders, and when they run these tournaments, it hasn't been anybody that actually belongs to them. But this year they've got Dobesh and they got Quentin Miller.
But they also have a third goaltender that they're inviting to this tournament, Jan Spunar, or Spooner or Spunner,
Yeah.
the Czech goaltender. He plays on the out in the West.
Yeah.
Um, I'm interested to see how he does because that's someone that did not get drafted again, and is an overager. They could sign him to a deal if they wanted to.
Right.
So it's really, really interesting to see how this works out. Dobish, um, he's clearly got the inside track for the AHL starters role with Primo still in the mix up top,
Yeah.
but he's gonna be platooning with Primo, right?
Yeah.
Quentin Miller was a backup in Quebec City, who's going to be the starter this year.
Correct.
So I agree. Be
Yeah.
really interesting to see how he does. But
I'm looking.
Spunner, I can't. Not sure how to pronounce his
I know what
name.
you mean. I know what you mean. But like in a nutshell,
But
I'm looking at this roster and I'm looking at someone that's going to just run with this. And as I looked at,
yeah,
this is a great opportunity for somebody to really stand out. And last year, for me, it was Arbor Jacki, right? He was a killer every time he was on the ice, and he brought that energy right into a main training camp. He made the team, and he had a year with the Canadiens, and now he's a fan favorite, not just for and like he's all over the Canadian social media. They're promoting the hell out of this guy, right? I'm looking
mm,
for a similar story here. And if I was to be someone that would pick a player that I think that's gonna really stand out at this tournament, it's Emil Heineman.
yeah, yeah. I can see that. For me though, it's Owen Beck. I think Owen Beck's going to be the one that's really going to stick out like a sore thumb in this group. You watch a couple of the preseason games he's had already with Peterborough. He had one in Sudbury just recently, and he was all over the place. He was flying through from one zone to the next with full control. He had full control of the game, and that's a progression that I wanted to see. Now I don't expect him to stay after camp. I think he's going back to junior, but I really, really do think that Owen Beck's going to have one hell of a tournament. Treg?
Oh, okay. The guys, I mean, everyone, you're absolutely right, Matt. Everyone's going to be looking at David Reinbacher to see how well he does. Everyone's going to look at Logan Mailloux to see how well he adjusts to the to semi-pro level. Emil Heineman is a guy I'm really going to watch, and I'm going to get into him a little bit later when we talk later about it. Um, but I'm going to be looking at Joshua Waugh and Sean Farrell only because I think these guys, this is the time for them guys to step it up and show that they belong at least in Laval. You know what I mean? Like they're not just belong in Laval, but top 6 players in
Right.
Laval when they get there. I mean, you have guys, like the guys you all mentioned, Jaden Struble, John Parker, all these guys who've already played in Laval. I'm not really going to be looking at those guys because they're going to be in Laval anyway, regardless of whether they play bad or play well. The only thing that might happen is if they get too many and they don't play that well, they'll get dropped to the ECH. But I doubt it. I don't see those guys. Maybe John Parker Jones, but anyone else, I don't really see them. They're there, so I'm not really too concerned about them. A guy that I'm interested to is Ty Smilinac.
Yeah,
Smilinac.
They picked up with the
Smilanic.
Sherratt trade.
Yeah, and he foregoed the rest of his university. He didn't finish his university. He's going to come in and play, so he's really going to work hard to get that pro contract, at least a 2-way deal in Laval. When I say 2-way deal, I mean Laval ECHL, not Laval Montreal.
Yeah.
And so I think he's going to be one of those guys that's really going to go out and give it his all. I think Philip Massar has something to prove because I don't think people are very high on him. And I think that he's a little bit underrated by some people. He did have a okay season there in Kitchener, but
playing one of the worst teams in the league. Remember
he
that?
was correct, and he was still a point per game player when he played down there. But again, Blain, Owen Beck, I think. Again, I'm going to get into him a little later, but I mean, Owen Beck is make or break. So he's either going to be Montreal or the OHL. However, at the end of this season, he's going to be in Laval. And at the end of his OHL season, he'll be in Laval.
Yeah.
or Montreal, depending on where, because it should only be about a handful of games left. But so I'm kind of looking at the new guys. Like to see where they go, how they play, especially Farrell and Wall. I just want to see. I want to see if they're going to be legit prospects for us because let's be honest, fans do kind of overhype some prospects, and Montreal fans are no different. Uh, these guys have had success, tremendous success at every level they played at so far. And if they can keep it up, they're diamonds in the rough. Like Joshua was what, a 5th round pick?
He was 5th round pick. Yeah.
So I mean,
It took a while for him to get going. Like for a guy that was the first overall pick in the Q draft, and it
yes.
didn't work out with the team that drafted him. But as soon as he moved on and went to Sherbrooke, like he was a whole new player. And we saw how he was in the World Juniors this year, playing with a guy like Bedard. And like, yes, Connor Bedard can do it all. He went number 1 for a reason. However, he had a very good supporting cast, and one of those guys was Joshua Roy.
Yeah, and Sean Farrell's another 4th-round pick. So you're looking at 2 guys, and Jacob Dubbs, a 5th-round, or how do you say his name? Dobish. Jacob Dobish,
friend of the show, Jakob Dobish.
He's a 5th-round pick. I mean, he's a goalie, so I don't really look at round, for goalies because they usually get picked later anyway. But yeah, there's just so many I want to look at. Like this is the first rookie camp where I'm sitting there going, okay, I got to see this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, and this guy. Whereas all the others, you're kind of looking at, like even last year, no one was really paying attention about Jack Eye. No one really, until he started playing, and then you're like, oh, who's this guy? Right. But last year you're looking at, Slavkovsky, and you're looking at Massar, and you're looking at. These guys that came into the little draft. Slavkovsky is who everyone was looking at last year, and he was okay, right? And so this year, I think it's going to be exciting this year. I'm excited for this rookie camp this year because I'm excited to see if these people we are hyping are actually going to be and I mean, it's just a rookie camp, so again, you got to kind of take it into perspective. Yep. But if Waugh and Farrell can dominate this rookie camp, then I think they're going to have solid AHL seasons.
Right. Yeah, and that's where they're supposed to be heading to anyway, is the AHL. And Laval's going to have a hard time picking and choosing their full roster, even though they can carry a lot more than just the 23. I think last year they had 32 on their roster until everybody started getting hurt, and they were whittled down to 12. but this year they got a whole bunch of people coming in, new faces, like a Jakub Novak who's going to be in this tournament. He's a guy who has played pro last year, played the NCAA, did fairly well, and he was drafted by Ottawa 5 years ago. He's about 23, 24 years old. He's a big kid too. He's 6'3", 6'4", 205, and he skates really well. So you bring in that new face they got in the draft and the trade, the 3-way trade. So their wings are getting a little bit bigger, a little bit faster. That's going to insulate guys like Farrell and Noir, who are going to be coming in as rookies. But there's on D, that's where things get really, really interesting, because the Canadiens are also invited someone named Stanislav Demin. You'd think he's Russian, but in reality, he's an American, and he played in the NCAA for several different schools. He kept bouncing around trying to find a school that would give him ice time. And he finally found it in his final year in Merrimack, and he did really well. He was a top scoring defenseman on the team. He's a big kid as well, 6'2", 205, skates really well, great first pass, highly agile on his edges. So that's a kid who's fighting for an AHL contract, just like Smilanic is. But in his case, he's on the left side of the defense, which in the Montreal system is pretty stacked. So if he does impress in this tournament, I would see him more likely in Trois-Rivières than I would in Laval.
It's like you're bringing up big guys. We talked about the goaltending. Jan Spunner. He's 6'3", 185 at 19.
Yeah.
And if you don't know about it, he played for the Portland Winterhawks last year. He was their number one goalie, went 17-7-2, 9 games in the playoffs. 908 save percentage, which was just okay.
It's
But
junior, so that's
it's
with a grain of
junior.
salt too.
Yeah, that's with a grain of salt. And then he played a little bit in the Czech International, but he comes over from HC Olomouc in the Czech League, the under 20 Czech
Yeah.
League, where he was again 22-8, 911 save percentage. Like this kid has something to him. He went undrafted. But he's another guy that could come in now that Kevin Poulin's retired. I think Jakub Dobish has the inside track to Laval.
Yeah.
You can see, I could see this guy going again, another guy who could sign a 2-way contract with Laval to play in the ECHL and with Verbetic, and then go from there. I think Verbetic might challenge Dobish for the. I'm going to put backup in quotations because I think Dobish could actually take the number one job from Primo, especially if Primo is just mediocre like he was last year. But he could, I think Verbetic could challenge it, but I don't think he has what it takes to. And I think Dobic is higher on the pecking order for the Canadiens to move to the NHL than Verbetic is.
Yeah, he definitely is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't think Joe Verbetic hasn't signed with anyone yet.
Oh, I thought he was still. I thought he signed 2 years last year to a 2-year, 2-way
No,
contract last year. Okay,
just a 1 year
okay,
deal,
okay. Well,
a 1 year
there.
AHL deal.
Well, there you go. You got Jan because I don't know who they have in the ECHL. Then if they don't have Verbetic, Desjardins. I think that's who was there last year, but I have no idea. So mate, there you go. Then Jan Spunner he's just playing for a contract, really.
I think that's what they're looking for because when they signed for Verbatic, he was a 19-year-old goaltender and he met certain requirements. And I'm pretty sure Jan Spunar fits those same requirements. So if he has a good showing, they could sign him to a 2-way AHL deal, and he'd be the starter in Trois-Rivières, just like Verbatic was.
Now Quentin Miller's the interesting one for me because really, as a backup, he didn't really play much. He only played 20 games. He only had 1 year in the queue. I mean, 211 goals against average, 14-4, but I mean, he played with the best team in the Quebec League.
He did, yeah. But when I saw him play live, he played a couple of games that I got to see live, and he was very, very well positioned. He tracked the puck extremely well. He was able to square up to the puck well. His rebound control was pretty good. You can tell he's a backup and he's not playing a lot because there were some times where his puck handling wasn't all that great and there were some missteps. But all in all, he played really strong hockey. This year he's going to be a starter.
Yeah, well, he was playing behind William Russo, and William Russo had a pretty stud season, right? So, but Russo got traded. He's with the Huskies now, so
because they wanted to open up for Miller.
Yeah, so Miller will be the number one there. Yeah.
So a good camp for Miller would be a great way to start his season.
Right.
Just to go off that a bit, because we're on goaltenders, we're talking rookies. People in this year's draft, a lot of people were upset by the fact that Montreal went out and drafted 3 goaltenders. But if you look at Jacob Fowler, to me, I think is going to be an NHL starter. I think he's going to be the goalie. Him and I want to say Jakub Dobish are going to be the goalies of Montreal's future.
I think he's going to be what they thought Primo was going to be.
Yes. And that Yevgeny Volikin is killing it in the MHL right now to start the season. Like he's, I think, allowed 3 goals. I know in the preseason, I think in 5 games, he allowed 3 goals or something stupid like that. And so don't, whether he ever comes over to the NHL, I don't know with all that's going on over there, but don't, I think people were too quick to judge the way they draft. And if you really look at it, their goaltending depth is next to 0. after Montembeau and Allen, and Montembeau's only signed for this year, and Allen's only signed until the end of next year. It's Primo.
Yeah, it really,
Yeah.
but really, it is really the time for one of these prospects to like be like, look at me,
Yeah,
because all you
it
need to
should
do,
be Primo, but I
yeah,
don't think it's going to be. I don't think
right,
Primo is going to be the goalie everyone thought he was going to be. He could be another Montembeau. He could
take
bloom
them a while
late.
to blossom. Yeah,
But I think people got to start looking at Jacob Fowler, uh, um,
Dobish.
Dobish, and don't sit on this Vulcan guy. Quentin Miller still.
Vulcan,
I
yeah.
the book's still out on him because I want to see him play a full season in the queue as the number one before I make
Mhm.
any decisions. But
But he's an interesting kid to follow this year.
he was an interesting draft pick based on the fact
Yeah.
there was just so little. He played 20 games as a backup, so but he played well, 14-4, 911 save percentage. So you can't really complain about that.
Well, you can. People will.
Yeah. I mean,
Naturally.
in the ECHL, you're probably going to see Emmett Croteau. I forgot about him, or Croteau.
No, he's in
Yeah,
the NCAA.
No, oh yeah, he is. Never mind, forget it.
and then they have got that Strauss man fella as well that they signed.
Oh, that's right. Yes, they signed
Right,
a
so I have
veteran in
him as well.
Strassman. Yeah,
Yeah,
good call.
They should have
That one slipped
drafted
by me.
that. What was his huge balls? What was his name? Sack me off or whatever his name was.
he got picked. He got picked before.
Yeah, should have been a first overall pick.
Should
Yeah,
have.
That was Matt's call.
Yeah.
yeah.
This is a
Chicago
kid.
lost
This
out on
kid's a
that one.
stud. Yeah.
Chicago lost out on that one. Yeah.
Now, speaking of losing out in Chicago, the Biosteel Camp happened here in Halifax, and it's a questionable pick at number one. Connor Bedard. I mean, I don't know many
Fourth,
other teams that would have picked him. I mean,
fourth
come on.
liner. Fourth liner.
At best,
At
fourth
best.
liner
It's too small.
in the Hall of Fame. Um,
Too small.
too small. No, this kid is something. Watching him and Connor McDavid teeing each other up for one timers. I know it's just a skate around. They're just doing like little pickup small area games and stuff, but oh my God, those two are just it's like melt in your mouth, butter, talent, just oozing everywhere. It was
So
amazing to
should
watch.
have went to Edmonton, is what you're saying.
Or is McDavid soon going to join Chicago? Ooh. No, wait, no, he's going to Toronto because he's from there, and everybody from Toronto goes back.
True.
Truth,
True.
truth. No, but the Biosteel camp was really interesting to watch. There were a lot of really good, really big names that were there, and while they were only getting their legs under them and starting to move around, you can really, really see improvement in some of the younger players that were there, such as Barron, perhaps. Justin Barron did look really, really good. Very mobile. It looked like he had a little extra pep in his step. A little bit more speed coming right off his first step. And his pivot to go to his reverse didn't have that little hop. Like when he was going forward and he had to turn to reverse and D up on someone, he would have a little hop and that would slow him down. There was no hop this time.
I think Barron. I think it's his position to lose in the NHL right now. Um, I I don't think you're going to see a camp like he had last year.
No,
Because he had a very underwhelming. Like you could see why he got sent down to Laval. Like it was visible. Made a lot of mental errors. Made a lot of, I don't know if it was nerves, but we've mentioned this before, Blaine. And you said sometimes it takes him a little bit mentally to get going in his game.
mm-hmm.
And from what you said, from what you've seen, it seems like he's there. It seems like he's
It does,
already,
yeah.
he took that in consideration
Yeah.
maybe in the off season, and
I want to see that in a game though. I
Well,
don't want to
when
see.
he-
I don't want. I don't want to see that in like a a glorified all-star camp.
But Matt,
Right.
when he got called up, he was pretty solid. Like, we have to admit,
He
he's pretty
did, he
solid
did. But again,
at both ends of the ice.
but we've discussed this before. He's a slow starter. So if he shows up at camp or he goes to main camp and he's a slow starter and other
He'll
guys
just go
look
down.
better than he is, then he goes down to Laval. He's waivers exempt anyway. Again, then you give him the top amount
Well,
of
yeah,
minutes
yeah,
that he can,
and that's what I'm saying. Like,
right?
but I don't think I don't see that happening with him this year. I think he learned his lesson last year. I think he, not learned his lesson, but I think he took a lesson out of last year,
Right.
and
Yeah.
and put it towards them. I think Montreal's going to have an issue with their defense this year on who's staying, because
And that's a good, and you know what, for some people, it's a good thing.
Oh, it's a great
right?
thing.
There's competition there.
But it's a great thing and it's not a great thing, because you can't sit one of the rookies unless you rotate them on a regular basis. So I can see Chris Weidman being waived to go to the AHL to make room.
Yeah.
I mean, Savard and Matheson are definitely staying.
Yeah, Goolie's staying.
Goolie's staying. Harris is probably staying.
Yep.
I don't see Jack Eye being sent down to the minors, because especially with the way that division has gotten tougher.
Right. And then Kovacevic was probably your most well-rounded defenseman out of the whole team.
Oh yeah.
So then you add Barron, so now you're up to what, 8 defensemen?
And then you still got the new guy and Gustav Lindstrom.
And you get Gustav Lindstrom, Chris Weidman. I mean, I think Weidman's done. I think he's going to get waived.
Well, on Weidman, I have it on good authority that he is injured at the moment.
Yes,
and he will not start the season.
I heard he has a back injury. So
yes,
yeah, I heard that too.
That'll play into the camp. If he is out for any length of time, they won't need to waive anyone. But out of the names you mentioned,
there's still 8 defensemen. So
yeah.
Someone has to go to Laval. Somebody.
Yep.
It'll be someone that is waivers exempt.
Yeah.
So it's either Barron, Jack Eye, Harris, or Goulet.
So basically the entire blue line.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So it's
that's
really,
part of the problem.
Unless there's a move to be made. And because I mean, we all know Casey DeSmith is being shopped right now. And I think teams are just waiting to see what their goaltending situation looks like before they make a move. Maybe a defenseman gets thrown into that mix, and
might have to.
And just who is it? I don't know. If it's Jack Eye, I'm never being a Habs fan again. So I'm done. I'm out.
What a punch in the face that would be.
Oh, it's gonna hurt my shoulder.
No, but I mean, I think the real problem, yes, there's going to be some really good competition come main camp, especially after this rookie tournament. We're going to see which of these rookies or young players are going to be prepared to compete right away. I can foresee maybe 4 or 5 of them right away stepping into the main camp and causing some really tough decisions. But with the sheer number of rookies and young players that are going to the main camp, I think the fact that some of these guys are waiver exempt is going to play in the fact that they go down, because the Canadiens don't want to be losing other assets that if they waived, they would lose when they're planning on trading some of these people anyway to get some assets back.
Yeah. Lidstrom, if they waive him, I think he gets picked up.
Oh God, yeah, right away.
As soon as they leave him. But it brings up another interesting thing. If we want to talk about this rookie camp, it's also going to show you not who's ready for the AHL, but let's talk about the elephant in the Montreal Canadiens room, and that's the injuries that they've had over the past 2 seasons, 3 seasons, 4, 5. And well, I mean, they got rid of their trainer, so it's all good now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you got to look at guys like Sean Farrell, Joshua Waugh, Logan Mailloux. Are they all going to be ready to make that jump to the NHL because of injuries? Are they going to be wanting to make them jump to the NHL for the injuries? So, I mean, you're going to see Elias Anderson. You're going to see him move up and down from Laval if he doesn't get picked up on waivers going up and down. Jared Davidson could be another guy that they use to go up and down. Riley Kidney's a Heineman. Well, Heineman, Mysak. I think Mysak will probably or Mishak or whatever you say his name. He could be the guy they use just because he's kind of fallen down in that. And they did kind of mention this offseason, they kind of want to develop properly and not push guys too quickly to where they shouldn't be.
Yeah, that's where I would see them use a guy like Kandata or something.
Yeah,
Yes.
Kandata, Mishak. I think Heineman is the only guy for me that I think they're willing to bring up to the big club in an injury issue. And again, we'll talk about that a little later. But like in defense, you got Turgenev, William Trudeau, Jaden Struble, Parker Jones. I think you'll see all those guys maybe just to keep Mayu, depending on how well Mayu does. Now, quarter Francois Bouillon, he's ready for the NHL right now. And which brings up another question. Mayu and David Reinbacher, you want to talk about defensemen? What if they kill it at training camp? And I mean, kill it.
Yeah, it's going to make it, they're going to make some hard decisions, that's for sure.
I see
Okay, let's get
Reinbacher.
into the Reinbacher thing.
Yeah, I see him
Let's
still
get into
going
that.
back to Switzerland, but no matter what he does,
Obviously, they'll leave the door open on the off chance that those guys, if they do show up and play as if they're all NHL All-Stars ready to go to the Hall of Fame now, they'll make the team. But I'm going to be brutally honest. I see that as a 0.1% opportunity for either one at this point.
Yep.
For
agreed.
Mayu, he needs more time. He hasn't
does.
played more than what is it? Almost 100 games or just over 100 games in the last 3 years.
Right.
That is not enough. It's not. And with Reinbacher, give him a year to marinate over in Europe. Let him settle in, pick up a few other aspects to his game because his offensive game is just starting to blossom. So you send him back to some place that he's comfortable, let him work on that part, then bring him back and adjust more to North American style. Because this whole thing right now is just to give him an idea of what North American style hockey is.
I think the question for Reinbacher coming to this camp will be, is it Laval or is it Colton? And I think it's going to be Colton. I think
so too. Should be.
I don't think it's going to be that big of a discussion. But say he does kill it in this training camp. Like say Reinbacher comes out and you're watching like, holy fuck. Like now I still think it's not the decision of do we keep him under Montreal? It's going to be the decision, okay, he's really adjusted. He's really played well over here. Do we want him to go back? You know what I mean? Or do we want him to keep adjusting in North America? I think that's going to be the question. Personally, I think it should be Switzerland. I think he should go back there. He says he wants to finish school. The coach is really good with him. He's really good with the system over there. They're high on his offensive side, although a lot of people think he's a defensive defenseman. But the way, if you watch that little video, the way they talked about him was he's a two-way guy. Like he can play offense. Yep. He can run a power play just as good as he can play on the penalty kill. And if that's the case, you're absolutely right. Like let him develop that in a place he's comfortable. Right.
And you know that they're planning on, and you can tell that they're planning on him going back anyway. They're not thinking Laval for him because if they were, why would they be signing guys like Brady Keeper? Why would they be signing guys like Noah Laolan?
Yeah,
like these are right-handed defensemen that'll play at the AHL level and eat up a ton of minutes there. And you got Mayu, who's probably going to be added on. So why would you sign that many right-handed D-men?
I'm just saying if Reinbacher really kills it here, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like when you see a player, when I say really kill it, you see a rookie really kill it, you're like, holy, he should be on the team.
Yeah,
you know what I
mean? It needs to be more than the rookie camp. It needs to be
the training camp, the main camp and everything.
Right?
Like rookie camp to me, I don't care if you kill it on that, because if you're not killing it in the main camp or the whatever,
if he comes and he turns heads, it's going to have to be a discussion. But I do agree that the best thing for him to do is finish school and go back home.
Yeah.
I don't think that the deadline on deciding on him is the end of the main camp. I think if he is actually doing that well, they'll give him NHL games.
Reinbacher?
Yeah.
Well, and when his season's over in Switzerland, nothing's stopping him from coming over and playing in Montreal.
Exactly.
And I think that's what's going to happen. I think he's going to finish his year in Switzerland. I believe they're done a month before the NHL, if I'm not mistaken.
I think their playoffs and everything, depending on playoffs, they could be done at the beginning of April or at the beginning of May.
Right. So he still can get 10, maybe 15 games in with the Canadians if he comes over. Maybe.
Even as 4 or 5.
Yeah. And I think that's what'll happen. I think that's what's gonna happen with Owen Beck. I think that's what's gonna happen with I think Mayu may see more time with injuries and stuff. You might see
Mhm.
him depending on how well he plays in the AHL, but yeah. Riley Kidney's a guy we haven't talked about either. I think he's a guy we should keep an eye on in this
You
camp as
can't
well.
sleep on him.
You
He's
can.
extremely talented. He's
Yeah.
so offensively gifted. You
Yeah.
can't really sleep on him.
He's a sneaky good player.
He is. The only downside for him really is his size.
Yeah.
So he's Jake Evans. He's going to get a concussion. That's what you're telling us.
Well, like I felt bad for him because I thought he was going to be a lock to make the junior team, and he came in injured, and he only had that one little game,
Yeah.
and then he
Yeah.
couldn't finish the rest of camp, and that was everything. Like he was done after that. So, but then he
And you
got
see what he
traded.
did in
Then he
Gatineau.
got traded to Gatineau and absolutely lit it up. So
Oh yeah. Now, Kidney has put on some weight this summer. Uh, last year, I think he was like 170 something pounds. He looks like he's a little bit more than 6 foot now. I think he might be almost 6'1", somewhere in there, like 6.5 to 6'1", and it looks like he's put on a good 5 to 10 pounds. So that bodes well for him this season. Um, just watching him in his training sessions out here, he looked a lot bigger. He looked a lot faster. Like, then again, it could just be that he was playing in the smaller rink and it just seemed that way. But at the same time, like you mentioned, Matt, this kid killed it in Gatineau. He absolutely will. 22 points in 13 games in the playoffs. In the playoffs, that's when, the physicality ratchets up, and even in the queue,
they put up
I know people are going to,
65 points
yeah.
in 29 games. Yeah, when he got to
So
Gatineau. Yeah,
he's someone you can't sleep on either. And at the very worst, he's going to be in Laval.
yeah, yeah.
What you're saying is we're going to be an offensive juggernaut in like 2
Yeah, you know
Well,
what? It's the rookie camp should be a good point to see, because we look at the competitions that are already going to be within the Canadiens, and then I think this rookie camp is going to be a nice measuring stick to see, is this competition going to add more competitors to it, right? Are we gonna see some of these guys jump up into it? Because right now, like, you look at the Canadiens roster, yes, there's guys that definitely have locked positions. There's some guys that have locked positions just because they're veteran players. However, where they slot in the lineup, there's a lot of openings. It's like, who's going to play on the top line with Suzuki and Caulfield? Who's going to play on the wing with Doc? Who's going to round out the third line? Who's going to round out the fourth line? Is there a defenseman that can knock one of these guys out, right? Like, there's a lot of what ifs. And if one of these guys from this rookie tournament can do that, I'm not going to even name, I'm not even going to, I will add Reinbacher to that, but with the discussion we had, I still think that he's probably going to go back to Europe. But if we see a Joshua Roy, we see Owen Beck, etc., it might knock one of those guys out of the lineup. And I think that it's going to be a great hockey to watch.
and this is the good but bad situation Montreal's in is they don't have any room for anyone to get knocked out.
Yeah. Well,
they
like,
already need to find room for either Slafkovsky or Harvey Pinard.
yeah, and
Like,
and then you've got Heineman, you got Ylonen, etc. Right? I've said this many times for many years. It's been, let's stock the shelves with prospects. Let's stock the shelves with prospects, and then it's
Here
like
we are.
you've got everybody sitting on the shelf, and it's time for these guys to go at it and to have this competition. And either you have it or you don't. They're going to have to start picking the guys that they think that are going to be NHLers and that are going to contribute on this team. And there's going to be some good players that are in there that aren't going to make it. And those are the guys you need to be like, let's package this guy with something when the team starts to ramp up their competitiveness within their own division to make that next step to get someone that's going to help them. Because you can say all you want, and you can say, look at all my shiny prospects, look at everything that they've done in the Q or the OHL or in Europe or anything like that. Well, they never end up doing anything for your NHL franchise, or you can't turn them into anything. They were just another good junior player.
Well,
But
this is
Matt,
where they're getting to the development side.
they
They're
don't
going to
have any
have to,
superstars.
yeah, they're not going to have superstars. You're right. They're not. But the depth of the prospect pool is immense. They've got a bunch of players that could be second, third liner, second, third liner, second, third liner, uh, number two, number three D man. Like they've got at least 30 guys that you can list off the top of your head that could fit some kind of NHL role. Now it's up to the development team to actually get some of these guys there, and like you said, Matt, use the rest to help fill in the openings on the
Yeah.
NHL roster, but with trades.
Yeah, it's the Canadiens have done well so far in, I'm not going to say necessarily say poaching the talent that's dropped off from other teams, but they've been strategic with the guys that they've picked up in Newhook, in Doc, etc. Right? But the thing is, like, if we can see some of those players that on their side of it say, this guy's going to be a good player, but is he going to be this for us? Maybe we can dangle him to another team and it's going to turn into this player for them, and and make that profit.
Or at least convince another team that he could be that player.
Yes.
For you.
Yes.
But the thing with Montreal, and the only reason that I bring up the superstars is because I'm kind of mocking some people that go on, yeah, we got all these prospects, but none are superstars. Yes, it's good to have a superstar in your team. I'm sorry, but I'm going to mention one, Cole Caulfield. However, if you don't have depth, I'm talking to you, the Edmonton Oilers and Toronto Maple Leafs, you're not winning. You're not winning. You know what I mean? Like, superstars in Toronto didn't win. Superstars in Edmonton haven't won, right? Tampa Bay superstars won. Why did they win? Because they had depth. They had
hell of a lot of it.
second, third, and fourth liners that could step up and do what they needed to do, right? Vegas had depth all through their lineup. That's why they won the Stanley Cup. Montreal has a shit ton of depth. And when you sit there and say they have no superstars, I think Cole Caulfield is going to be a superstar. I think Lane Hudson has potential to become a superstar.
True.
Nick
Yeah.
Suzuki,
I mean?
He keeps taking the steps.
Nick Suzuki. I think Reinbacher. Like, oh yeah, I know he's not Mitchkov, and they're going to compare them. But how do you compare an offensive player with a defensive player? And let me bring this up. All right, so Mitchkov scores 100 points. Okay, we all know Mitchkov's terrible at defense. He's the Phil Kessel of the KHL, if he ever plays, right? So he gets his 100 points, but he's also on the ice he has a GF of 120 and a GA of 100, right? So he's a plus 20. Okay. And in the GFX, I guess I'm doing just quick math on this analytic bullshit. It's probably not correct. Someone will say you're an idiot, but but if you look at Reinbacher, so say he's on for 80 goals for, and 60 goals against, he's also a 20. You know what I mean? Like, if you narrow it down, they were on the ice. They both helped their team gain 20 goals.
But did he Michigan any of those goals? Did he Michigan any of those goals, though?
But to jump on that point, yeah, like the numbers you used, you said 100 goals against for Mitchkov and 60 goals against for Reinbacher. And if you follow that, yeah, he's not as offensively gifted, clearly, but he's on the ice much more because he's going to be as a defenseman, he has more ice time. So if he's on the ice twice as much as Mitchkov, which is a very high possibility, and he lets in half as many goals, but provides nearly as many goals, the impact that he brings to the team is enormously outstripped over Mitchkov.
Or Mitchkov's going to look good. He's going to look fancy. He's going to get the 100 points. Yeah. Everyone's going to say, oh, look at him. But in the end, is the team that much better because he scored his 100 points, or what? Like, and I'm not saying plus minus. I'm not look because I think plus minus is a terrible stat. I'm talking about actual XGF, I guess, is what I'm talking about when you really break it down, right? That's the only way you compare an offensive guy with a defensive guy because you can't compare them. Reinbacher's not going to score 100 points. Sorry, but he's not. But if he prevents 100 goals from going in, isn't that the same thing? If he's on the ice and he's on the ice, and the reason he's on the ice is because those other teams don't score because he's the reason on the ice, it's kind of the same thing, right? You can't win a game if you get scored on, right?
Score more than the other guy.
I mean, at least Reinbacher's going to be able to play this year. I don't know about Michkov.
Well, every team needs a star type player, someone that gets you out of your seats. But the Canadiens already have an NHL version of Michkov in Caulfield.
And he can skate.
And do you really want to? And do you really want a 5'8" and a 5'9" winger on a line? No.
Well, I don't know. Koivu, Bure, and Petrov were a pretty solid line. I don't think
what happened in the playoffs that year.
I said they were a solid line. They skated under everybody.
Low bridge.
But you're absolutely right. And like, people don't look at that either. Like, you have Caulfield there who's 5'8". You have Suzuki who's what, 5'11", 5'10".
Yeah,
so you bring Michkov. You bring Michkov in who's also 5'8". And I'm not knocking Michkov. Like, he has talent. There's no two words about it. He's an offensive dynamo. But he's not that great. He's not that great of a skater, right? He's just an average skater, and he's terrible on defense and in his own end.
I don't think he knows where it is.
So when he gets to the NHL, if you're 5'8" and you're not a very good skater, you know what's going to happen to you? You're going to get fucking rocked. That's what's going to happen to you. Tom Wilson's going to take you out, whether you're skating or not. And, you know, it's good for Philly. I think they got a great player. I think Michkov's going to do well. I think the whole thing, what's going on with him in Russia now, is the reason a lot of teams didn't want to draft him, right? SKA has a terrible coach. He only got there because he knew people. But you want to go on about rookies, Demidov's playing. He's played every game but one, right? He even played 13 minutes in his last game. Then again, he never come out publicly and said, when I get drafted, I'm going to play in the NHL either. So that's
but yeah, that kind of points to the whole NHL development teams have no say whatsoever
in the KHL.
If there was a say, I would think that Michkov would have gone much higher.
I think he could have went first or second. If they could, if he could come right over to North America, if he didn't have a contract with the KHL, and B, if he wasn't in the KHL.
True.
I mean, he just would have went higher.
Now, we're at the point of the show where I normally ask if anyone has any final thoughts, but fuck both of you. You're not doing any dad jokes. The show's over. We're leaving now. Done deal.
So we're not talking about the thing I kept saying I'll talk about later.
Okay, which was
the Canadiens that could steal a spot on the roster.
I guess we could.
Oh, you should have just thrown a dad joke in there just to fuck with them.
I mean, putting your car in reverse does make you nostalgic. It takes you back. So I'll go over it quickly. 3 guys that we were just talking about that could make the Canadiens out of this camp if they kill it. Owen Beck, Emil Heineman, and David Reinbacher. Now, we already established David Reinbacher's probably going to go back to the Swiss League no matter what. Owen Beck has 2 choices, CHL or Montreal. But if Owen Beck and in his one game in Montreal played pretty solidly, if he can play a whole camp like he did that one game, he has a chance to make, especially with the injury to Dvorak. He has at least get the 9 games in. Heineman, I think Heineman could actually steal a spot and make the team right out of camp if he plays like he did when he was in the AHL last year. I think he's almost, I want to say a sure thing, but if anyone's going to steal a spot, it's going to be him. Anyway, that's all I got to say.
If he comes in and plays the way that he did when he came back to, like, when he came over from Sweden and jumped in Laval, absolutely. Yeah. The guy was absolutely on fire. He scored 7 goals in, I think, the 10, 11 games that he played. So, and he seems to be talking with a lot of confidence, which is what you want to see from your young players.
And for me, I think he's a better offensive Lehkonen. I think he plays a solid 2-way game, and he knows how to hit the net, unlike Lehkonen did when he was in Montreal. Then he goes to
on his shot is a laser beam.
Yeah. Oh, it's incredible.
For me, I want to see the guys that make the team stay on the team. I want to see some health to this team, because other than Nick Suzuki, who played all 82 games, the only other player that played over 70 games was Kovacevic.
Besides Suzuki.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But nobody else played over 70 games. So those new trainers, those new trainers, they're going to be miracle workers.
Wouldn't that be something though, if they like went to like the opposite and was like the least amount of injuries in the NHL because of 2 new trainers? Yeah. I'd be like, you got to be kidding me. Those old trainers be like, are you shitting me? Really?
It's everybody skating with icy hot.
Mario, we really got to make sure these guys stay on the ice. Our job really depends on it. Yeah. He broke his foot. No, he didn't. His foot is fine. Anyway. Matt, you're on mute. You're on mute, Blain.
Okay, well, I didn't want to tell any dad jokes. So I was trying to avoid that. But on Beck, I do think he's going to go back to the CHL, and I think it's going to make a huge difference for him. You look at what happened with Suzuki when he went back for a second year. Now, I don't think Beck is going to stay with Peterborough for the whole season, but at the very least, we're going to see his game evolve a little bit more, because the offensive side of the game is just starting to come for him.
Yeah, I think, but I'm just saying, I think Owen Beck, he could get his 9 games in Montreal. Like I say, there's an area to Dvorak. They could put him in there and say, hey, let's see what you can do, and then go to the OHL. He's going to be one of those guys I think you see at the end of the season playing in Montreal. Same with Reinbacher. I think you're going to see him at the end of the season.
Yeah. A lot of people were calling Owen Beck a poor man Shane Wright.
Yeah.
Well,
right. So and right now Beck is kind of started to.
So here's my question though about Shane Wright, especially with this whole thing about him mightn't be able to get a waiver or exemption to play in the AHL. How does that work?
Because he was in one of those elite players. What's I forget the
elite
term.
Player status.
Yes, the exemption that he got.
Yeah.
Because so he was eligible to play in the OHL for 4 years already.
Yeah,
which is the norm. So
they could probably he got in early. Yeah,
but the thing is he didn't play because he played the one season and then COVID hit. Right, so he only actually played 2 seasons with the Frontenacs.
But doesn't he have to be 20 to play in?
Yeah, that's why they're if they were to do it, they'd have to put in a waiver for it.
Right,
and I think that would be their excuse.
Yeah, and he's not 20 until January.
I think that opens up a lot of holes, though.
Of course it does.
Where a lot of teams like Montreal could say, well, we got Owen Beck here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He got nothing more to learn in the OHL.
Yeah.
We want him in the AHL. He's 19. You know what I mean? We're wasting away. I think that whole rule's stupid anyway.
Yeah, I think if you're a European player, you can jump right in.
Right. I think if you're ready to move up, you're ready to move up. And you should allow them to move up, personally. I understand
to protect CHL teams.
I understand why the OHL did it, because they don't want, as soon as a guy gets drafted at 18 and he's good enough, the team's like, all right, you're going to play for Laval. You know what I mean? But I get it. But it's also, it needs to be revamped, I think. Anyway, that's it. That's all I got.
No argument here. All right. So for real now, end of the show. Final thoughts. Matt, you're going to be the only one allowed.
I told you I got a joke too. So
Then never mind. I'm going to be the only
no.
one allowed.
So I got three things and a joke actually. So friend of the show, Mike Comito. He always tweets out the on this day. So on this day as we record, 5 years ago today, the Montreal Canadiens acquired Nick Suzuki, Thomas Tatar, and a second round pick from Max Pacioretty. Also on this day in 2014, Saku Koivu announced his retirement from the NHL after 18 seasons playing with the Canadiens and the Ducks. And something not hockey related, everyone knows I'm a big UFC fan. So shout out to Sean Strickland for winning the middleweight title. And on the Canadian side, congratulations to Georges St. Pierre, who was named to the Canadian Sports Hall of Fame. And I'll do my joke. I'll do my joke now if you want, because it's pretty fantastic.
Please don't.
Oh, so go ahead. Okay. So did you know that it was illegal in Hawaii to laugh too loud? I never knew that when I was there, but apparently it has to be aloha.
Boo.
What do you call a sleeping bull? A bulldozer.
Okay, Matt, I'm going to give you a thumbs up for yours because that one's so bad. So bad. Okay, Treg, you got something other than a dad joke?
I do. I want to say congratulations to my good buddy Rowan Humble, who got his IFBB Pro card. I've been working in this gym, working with him in the gym. Not with him, but he's one of the guys that I go to my gym, and he's been working really hard at this. He's been at it for years trying to get his pro card. So congrats to him. I don't know if he listens to the show, but congrats to you, Rowan, for getting your pro card. Other than that, if you're in Nova Scotia and you want to go see a good bodybuilding show, the Nova Scotia Open is on September 30th at the Spats Theater in Halifax. And if you want to go see the Flex Lewis show, it's in Moncton at I forget what they call it, but it's someplace in Moncton. I don't know what it's called. It's the same place last year, but I can't remember the name.
Anyway. Right. And for me, I want to let everybody know that the Invictus Games are ongoing as we speak. They opened up today, the 9th of September, and they go until the 16th. And they're being held in Dusseldorf, Germany. So go check out the Invictus Games page for Team Canada. Give Canada your support. These are retired. Some of them are even serving CAF veterans who have some sort of disability or mental handicap from their service, and it's an important type of game. It's bringing soldiers, sailors, airmen, personnel a way to find that team spirit that they had when they were at the forces. So the ones that are now retired and out, it brings that, gives them that little bit of hope that they had, that little bit of family feel that they had when they were in, and it helps with their mental health. And there's so many things that this Invictus Games does help with. So go and check that out. Give them your support. And if you're looking for a charity to donate to help veterans, Veterans Canada is an excellent place to go. Vets Canada. You can find them online, vetscanada.ca or at Vets Canada on any of the social media platforms. I've been working with this group now for years, and they're amazing in helping to raise awareness and help get people off the streets. We look for veterans who are homeless and help them get out of that situation and back into regular society with whatever help they need. And these people do it behind the scenes, in the shadows. They don't care if they're known. They just want to help these people. So if you're looking for a charity, that's the charity that I would give to. So On that, that does it for this episode of Habs Unfiltered. I want to thank everyone who has listened and stuck with us all these years and has followed us to the end of the show, despite the horrible dad jokes, like just painfully bad dad jokes, especially the Hawaiian one.
People are still laughing at that. I know they are.
It's cute.
You couldn't even get no, never mind. I'm not going to say it. It's too mean. But no, I want to thank everyone for listening and tuning in and continuing to interact with us online. Send us your questions, your comments via email, on YouTube, social media, anywhere. Habs Unfiltered. You can find us there. I want to thank you for doing all that. And remember, if you are talking about it,